Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to my channel. Today I would like to discuss an issue that I often get into debates with in regards to consent. I have recently made a few videos discussing how sexualized images in commercials, such as, for example, sometimes I will get a commercial online saying, "Hey, sexy," or sometimes the hot sauce packets at work, not at work, at a certain fast food establishment will say something like, "I can't live without you," or "I've the hots for you," or something like, "I melt in your hand, you make me melt," and other things like that. And I was discussing this with a few colleagues of mine, and I was given significant pushback. And the pushback I often receive on this issue is in regards to them saying that that's not real sexual harassment. That's not really sexual harassment, right? Well, the real sexual harassment, the legal sense of sexual harassment, it has to be unwanted. It has to be unwanted as in non-consensual, not necessarily. Let me rephrase that. It has to be non-consensual. As in, for example, if you approach someone randomly and you do not have consent, you have yet to gain consent. So the legal definition of sexual harassment, technically, if we're going to go that way, technically, it's something that is sexual in nature, and sexual in nature is broad, is very broad. That can mean many things. A lot of times I've heard people say in response to a sexual harassment accusation, "Oh, relax, relax. Look at you. Ain't no one coming after you," or something like that, or some kind of other negging or some other kind of insult following it. So, saying that it has to be sexual is very, very, very broad. Very, very broad. Otherwise, you'll have arguments like that being made. But it must be non-consensual, it must be sexual in nature, and it must be repeated. It must happen after the person who has complained of it has already asked them to desist. There must be, in order for legally for it to be sexual harassment. And of course, I wonder how it actually plays out in court if they actually check to see if it was actually repeated. I wonder if that's actually the case. But according to the letter of the law, it must be repeated. It must be repeated multiple times. So most of what people call sexual harassment isn't technically sexual harassment according to the letter of the law. But if you look through any kind of employment manual or any kind of vernacular article online talking about what is and what isn't sexual harassment, staring at someone is sexual harassment, giving physical compliments is sexual harassment, telling someone anything about their appearance is sexual harassment, requesting sexual favors is sexual harassment. Any kind of approaching someone, asking them out on a personal basis is potentially sexual harassment. Ultimately, anything can be sexual harassment, really. And why is that fair? Well, who determines, let me ask you, who determines whether something is sexual harassment or not? Is it the person doing the alleged harassing? Is it the third party? I would suggest it's the person claiming they've been harassed. They determine. They get to determine whether they've been harassed or not. I think the biggest problem in acknowledging that in our society comes from the fact that we come up from a punitive mindset, and we think that we have to associate fault with something. I can think of many situations in which a person might sexually harass someone and not be at fault or incurs any kind of guilt in terms of whether he should be punished or he has done something wrong or is a bad person. For example, staring. Many people consider staring to be a form of sexual harassment. And I can think of situations in which a person, well, I think people have the right to dress however they want. And people also should have the right to look at their environment however they please, in any way they please. I think people should be allowed to stare. Not to stare at people and make that doesn't see when I say that it gives the impression that I am saying people have a right to make you uncomfortable. No, I think people have a right to be comfortable, and people have a right to not be made uncomfortable. If someone staring makes them uncomfortable, I recognize that that may be sexual harassment. However, is it fair to punish someone for it? You can debate all day as to how deliberate it is, but I could imagine a person being within their rights to look at someone, to look not to look at someone, but to observe their environment, which people may be a part of. I think people have a right to do that. And I can also understand how it might make people uncomfortable. So I can see a situation in which a person may sexually harass someone, but not incur any kind of guilt, such as staring. I can understand how it might make someone uncomfortable, and I can understand how, at the same time, they have the right to stare. They have the right to observe their environment. And if you disagree with me, surely you agree that people have the right to dress however they want, right? Staring is rude, you could argue, but is it not also rude to defy social expectations by dressing in manners that others don't consider appropriate? It's also rude. What does rude mean? Rude means in violation of social expectations, right? So both of those things break social taboos and are rude. It is rude to stare, but it is also rude to dress provocatively. I think it's amazing for people to dress provocatively. I think they should dress however they want. People should dress however they please. And people should be allowed to look at anyone, anywhere, anytime they please. Well, they should be able to... I take that back. I don't think people have a right to look at people. No. But I do think people have a right to observe their environment. And if people are in that environment, while they are in that environment, they are open to purview. And I think people should have the right and ability to withdraw that at any time. Is that the society we live in? No. But, see, it gets complicated because people have a right to dress however they want, but you have to acknowledge that that does break social taboo. That is, in a way, by the definition, it is a form of rudeness. Does that mean people shouldn't dress however they please? If you disagree with me and you think that people should just dress and that it's not rude, how do you feel about nudism? I think people should be able to be nude. Anyway,